Be rain wrapped and extremely difficult to see. But if you're in Iowa County, a tornado warning will be in effect for you until 6:45 this evening. Going in on the radar now, and we'll take the lightning off here, and you'll be able to see where the core of the storm is there. And it's probably a little bit to the south-southwest of Williamsburg, and it's heading in a northeasterly direction at about 40 miles an hour, so it is buzzing right along. On our velocity mode here, which is where we can see the motion within the actual storm, the area that we're concerned about right now is that little yellow area right at the bottom of the reds there, southwest of Williamsburg. That is where the couplet is located, and the rotation would be found that could produce a tornado, and that is now in the southwestern part of Iowa County. We'll also put a fan on here too to give you an idea of where this is moving, and you can see as it goes on at about 40 miles an hour that will take it pretty close to Iowa City, and before it gets there it's Parnell, Holbrook, Oxford, Tiffin, and North Liberty that would be in the path of the storm, and then probably Coralville and Iowa City. That's assuming that it does hold together at its current strength. But right in there you can actually see where that rotation is that's causing the storm, and I'll put my little marker on it right about there. That is what's known as a couplet, and where you got the yellows and the oranges and the reds, the winds are going one direction. Where the greens are found, they're going another. So right in there is where your inflow notch is that's causing our tornado warning to be issued tonight. And another way to look at this is the base velocity here, and there's another fine view of where our circulation is located right in this region right in here. So far, no confirmation of any tornadoes, but the tornado warning is out now for Iowa County until 6:15 this evening. And Brandon, we also have a thunderstorm warning out that's involved for some of those counties down that way too.
Yeah, we do have a severe thunderstorm warning that is for Iowa County, also Johnson, Keokuk, and Washington County. That as well is out until 6:15. They did just up the wind with this, so you can expect 70-mile-per-hour gust, and we were kind of watching the base velocity here, one of the components that we can watch here on the radar, and we've been noticing for the last several minutes some very high wind with this system, and 70-mile-per-hour gust certainly possible, as well as some small hail. The Weather Service did just say they've increased to 70-mile-per-hour winds with this line, which is accelerating about 50 to 50 miles per hour. So it is moving pretty quickly off to the northeast.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the gate-to-gate shear there too. That's almost at 90 miles an hour right now. So there is a pretty tight circulation associated with the storm right now moving through southern Iowa County. And aside from the strong gusty winds in the severe thunderstorm warning, there is a pretty decent chance there could be a tornado spin up there just to the southwest of Williamsburg, Iowa. And why don't we go in just a little bit closer on this too here and give you another perspective of what this looks like closer to Williamsburg. There you can see where Williamsburg is located, and you can see that circulation there is northwest of North English and southwest of Williamsburg, and it's all moving in an east to northeast direction. So we'll put this back a little bit, and you can see how this has been spinning its way to the northeast, and should be coming right across southern Iowa County there and eventually towards Johnson County. Okay. And of course we got our road warrior out, and Nick Stewart is manning that tonight, and he's been heading south towards the storm. I know he's in Benton County now. What can you see from your vantage point, Nick?
Hey Terry, we're heading south. We're approaching the town of Norway in extreme southern Benton County. We were kind of fighting to get out ahead of the rain, and what you can kind of see there through the rain, there's definitely an area of dark. There's kind of some lowerings back there. That is the area of interest. Bottom line, if you're trying to see this thing before it hits you, you are not going to see it if there's anything on the ground. It is completely wrapped in rain. We're kind of playing this a little bit safer than we would normally have a much better visual on this thing. We'd have a much kind of a better picture of a clear supercell. Because it's so wrapped in rain, embedded in this line of storms, we're kind of playing this a little differently. And so we're going to kind of keep fighting to stay out ahead of this line. But again, right now, the strongest of that rotation is approaching the town of Parnell. I know we have a really loyal weather spotter that reports to us very frequently in the town of Parnell. And I'm hoping he's taking shelter and not outside trying to see the storm, because that rotation is approaching it pretty quickly.
And Nick, as you mentioned, these storms are going to produce some very heavy rains. We're looking at rainfall rates on the order of 1 to 2 inches in an hour's time. So that's one of the reasons why you won't be able to see the tornado if it does actually reach the ground. And we have had no confirmation at this point, but it certainly does look like our circulation is pretty tight there, just to the northwest of North English and southwest of Williamsburg, and it's moving in a northeasterly direction. Let's see here. We can kind of put it into motion there. It looks like it's going to kind of go right between the two cities, which is certainly good news, but it is going to be approaching Interstate 80 in the next 15 minutes or so. Brandon, anything you've seen new over there?
Really nothing new on the chat. Again, this is just radar indicated. The severe thunderstorm fully capable of producing a tornado near Millersburg, around Marengo, just 14 miles south of Marengo. It is moving east at 35 miles per hour, so it is moving up pretty quickly. But again, there is also a severe thunderstorm warning for Johnson, Keokuk, Washington, and Iowa County. And this storm is really kind of starting to bow out, which indicates that there's a big wind threat with this, and they did increase the warning to possibly 70-mile-per-hour winds with that storm.
And as you can also see, there is a tremendous amount of lightning associated with the storms down that way. So a lot of electricity involved here, probably some stout winds too, and also that possibility of a tornado between Williamsburg there and off towards North English. And we also want to mention once again too, the severe thunderstorm warning itself goes through parts of Iowa and Washington counties up there into northwestern Keokuk, and actually even gets into Johnson County there just to the southwest of Iowa City. So with our storm moving in a northeasterly direction, the next place it's likely to come into is Johnson and parts of Washington counties. And are we still in contact with Nick? Can we speak with him or not? Okay, Nick, if you can hear me, just wondered if you're seeing any lightning out there. There's an awful lot of lightning strikes on our radar tonight.
Yeah, we are in the town of Norway right now, so we don't have the greatest view right now. We are going to start getting out ahead of the storm, but yes, the lightning is very frequent. There's a left turn right up here. That was it right there. Yep. Okay. Maybe just turn around. Sorry, Terry. We're kind of trying to navigate at the same time while trying to get through the storm. Again, we're in the town of Norway. There's a lot of lightning with the storm, that's for sure. The structure is very impressive as well. There's what we call a shelf cloud, which is kind of a big, low-hanging line of storm. I'm going to turn the camera here. Sorry, hope you're not getting motion sickness. There is a storm, again, back there. It's kind of a low-hanging cloud that's a strong indication of damaging wind. That is definitely what we're seeing with the storm, in addition to the frequent lightning strikes.
We are looking again at base velocity here, Nick, if you can hear me. And I know they're kind of in the thick of it here. But notice too how low the clouds are to the ground. The cloud levels today very low. So if we do get some sort of a spin up there just to the north of North English, there is a pretty good chance that he could reach the ground. So definitely some parameters there that certainly favor some brief tornado spin-ups. Now, I doubt very much they'd be a large tornado tonight, but EF0, EF1's a pretty good possibility in this type of situation. And this whole line of storms continues to advance in an east-northeast direction. And if we go back to velocity mode right in here, you'll be able to see where our circulation is centered there, and that would be just right in this general region here, which is still to the north of North English, but not by a lot, and a little bit southwest of Williamsburg by, say, 7 or 8 miles. And it continues to advance off in an east-northeast direction here, and we've seen some speeds up to 40 miles per hour. In terms of the base velocity mode, I'm going to go back to this now, and we're going to go in a little bit closer on this because I want to try and see if I can get some figures on it. And I go in here and I'm going to do a query, and where you can see some of these darker numbers, we'll see what kind of, look at that, we got a velocity there of 105 miles per hour, gate to gate shear at 68. So there's a very good chance that this storm is producing down at the ground winds of at least 60 to 70 miles per hour, probably in a pretty small area there northeast of North English. But some powerful winds look to be a good bet with this storm if it's not even producing a tornado, which is a possibility, just nothing confirmed so far.
And Terry, the other thing is these storms are moving pretty fast too, and as Nick mentioned, a lot of rain, so it might be difficult to see if there is anything in there, especially when you're talking about where that circulation is compared to all that rain out to the east. And then Ashley on Facebook is saying she lost electricity in Williamsburg, and that's just at the front edge of that storm there. It's been, and then Heather on Facebook also saying Marengo getting really windy out that way.
Yeah, and right now it still appears that what circulation there is just to the northeast of Parnell there. And if we go in a little bit tighter on this, we can even show you some of the cities and roads that might be in the path of it. And it's probably getting pretty close to Parnell, maybe right on the edge of Parnell as we see now. I think it's probably going to be there very quickly. So if you're in Parnell, you got to be aware this is a strong storm, and even if it does not produce a tornado, it is likely to produce very strong gusty winds, perhaps as high as 70 miles per hour. And from there, we've got the town of Holbrook and Williamsburg. You're going to be kind of on the north edge of it here, but you could see some small hail along with your gusty winds in that part of our viewing area. And then finally, it's going to get up closer to Interstate 80 within the next 10 or 15 minutes. So I'm going to go back, do another fan here, and just give you an idea what's in the path of it. And we're running this out here, probably right in that general area there. And Windham and Cosgrove are two of the towns that come up, and Holbrook's also very close to that actual track there. So that's between now and 6:10 this evening. The actual tornado warning is out until 6:15 tonight. And Nick, if you're still in contact with us, we'd like to know what you're seeing out there in the field now.
Hey Terry, yeah, we're approaching Iowa County border right now, and what you're seeing with our shot is the shelf cloud again. We've been talking about it before. It's that indication of very strong winds, kind of the leading edge of the storm. This area that we're in right now, not particularly warned, but it's the areas further off to the south that, again, includes about the central and southern parts of Iowa, and then now pushing into southwestern Johnson County. So that's kind of the structure you're seeing right now. Any type of tornadic signature would not really be visible to the eye, I mean, because it's just so embedded in rain. But again, the main threats, we have a lot of very heavy rainfall, which is one of the main concerns we were mainly focused on as we went through this event. Very heavy rainfall in addition to very frequent lightning strikes. We're seeing a lot of lightning strikes with the storm. I don't know how well you can see it, but I mean, it's like a strobe light every once in a while with our camera because we're seeing so many lightning strikes. And again, anything that would be of interest is buried in that rain somewhere.
And right now, Nick, we can see your position on our screen here. Looks to me like you're probably, I'm guessing 20 miles north and northeast of where the storm is actually located, maybe 15, 20, something like that. Does that sound right to you?
I would say that's right, yeah. We're about to jump onto 151 south here in about a quarter of a mile, and then we have kind of a straight shot south into the storm.
Okay, yeah, I can see you on 151. Then you're going to probably have to cut back over and head down and cross Interstate 80 somewhere. But you're getting pretty close to the core, which would be just to the south of you.
That is correct. And we're going to probably ultimately have to head southeast. That would be on, I guess that'd be Highway 6 towards Tiffin to keep ahead of the storm.
Yeah, you're going to have all kinds of problems with visibility with the heavy rains that are associated with it, but it's definitely starting to look a little bit rough down your direction there. And as far as our actual circulation goes, I want to go back to our velocity mode here, and it's still on there now, but it's probably a little southeast of Williamsburg, northeast of Parnell, right in this region, right about here. And that is spinning slowly off to the east-northeast. We'll actually back this up a little bit, and there you can see as it spins its way across parts of Iowa County there, it's going to be coming in just to the southwest of Oxford. Now, you can see back here we had a little tighter circulation. There was some yellow in there. Now that has been lost, but there is still circulation, and there is still the possibility of a tornado, but it's not nearly as tight as it was about 5 to 7 minutes ago from what I can see now. Brandon, anything new you're getting in to report there?
I have not got anything new recently, no.
Okay.
There is another severe, they did extend that severe thunderstorm warning out too. They're talking still 70-mile-an-hour winds. So outside of where there's the circulation elsewhere down that line, there's going to be some very strong winds along that line there.
And there you can see in the orange is where our actual thunderstorm warning is in effect. So that's going to be out till 6:15, and then we still have our tornado warning for that little sliver up there, and that itself is going to be going until 6:15 as well. So if they do not cancel it early, Then the storm will by then be getting up into parts of Johnson and northwestern sections of Washington County. And if we can go in just a little bit closer here. There we can see that's the actual tornado warning, this rectangular box right over in here. That's where the actual warning is located.
Inflow into that storm too.
Yeah.
Parnell.
Yeah, definitely going right into it there. And there's probably at least some hail. We can certainly check on that here too. And there you go. There's a nice little core, it looks like, which is just to the south of Parnell. And we're getting an estimate there of hail size of 3.6 inches. Typically, these algorithms are running way high, but it's very possible there could be at least 2-inch diameter hail in that small area there, which is probably just a couple miles to the south of Parnell. And now you can see the warning has been extended off to the northeast. Anything new on that, you guys?
So that is for Johnson County there, and that is for 70-mile-an-hour winds, Cedar, Johnson, Washington counties until 7 p.m. So they're just extending that out. The storms today, though, they've been moving fast. We had a lot of hail reports this morning. Just got a report out of Parnell, 60-mile-an-hour wind gust.
Okay, that sounds about right. I don't think that's out of line at all. But we do have the severe thunderstorm warning now being extended further east. It does include Iowa City, Riverside, Conesville, West Liberty, places like that. But the key thing there is it is not a tornado warning, it's a severe thunderstorm warning. So at this point, there's no reason to put the tornado warning out for that area. And part of the reason why is the circulation has diminished a little bit, but we're still seeing at least some signs of rotation there. Southeast of Williamsburg, that's where our couplet would be located. And it's heading off to the east, going to be getting pretty close to Oxford and then eventually towards Iowa City. And Nick, are you back with us? What can you show us or tell us?
Hey Terry, the problem is the storm is really moving really fast, so we're kind of playing a game of catch up. We're still fighting to get out ahead of the rain. We're just kind of crossing into the Iowa-Johnson County line. We're now going east from 151, kind of on some more local roads. We're trying to get back east, ultimately heading now towards Swisher. Going to try and get over to 380 and south out ahead of the storm. But again, the main threats that we can see from our end on the northern fringe of it would be very heavy rain and frequent lightning strikes. You can see it buried in the rain. It's kind of a blue tint to the sky. That's just how much precipitation is falling.
Yeah, low cloud levels too, Nick.
The stop sign go left.
And that's to be expected in a situation like today. We've got dew points that are way into the 70s out there and some pretty, warm, unstable air. And that's one of the things we would expect to see. The cloud bases are low to the ground there. And there's where Nick's vehicle is located. You can see it straight north of Wellman, right in this region here. That'd be a little northwest of North Liberty. So the direction that they are heading now, they'll try to get down here in advance of the storm before it approaches North Liberty and Iowa City. So they're seeing the storm, but want to try to get a little bit ahead of it here if they can in the next 15 minutes or so, and we'll be keeping close tabs with them. Going back to our velocity mode, we'll see how our couplet looks here. And not a real tight circulation, not quite like it did look. See right there, see that yellow and orange stuff there northwest of North English? That was very impressive. So now there's a brand new tornado warning that's been extended towards Iowa City. Can you tell me any of the specifics of the warning, Rebecca?
Tornado warning until 6:30, as they're just saying, once again, radar indicated for Iowa, Johnson counties.
Okay, so it looks like it's going to be moving out of Iowa, eventually into Johnson County on its current path, should be approaching Iowa City. And one of the other things about these storms today is that they are really dumping out the rainfall. They're quite intense, and there's so much moisture in the air that 1 to 2 inches of rain in a short period of time would be a very distinct possibility. But the other feature that we've noticed too are the strong winds that have been developing here. And once again, I'm going to go and do a query on this. This is what we call the base velocity mode. And this is how we can kind of get an idea of the strength of some of the winds in the storm itself. So right there, the winds are pretty light, but you jump up into this area here, and that's where you should see some stronger circulation. But nothing that's nearly as impressive as it was earlier. So I don't think this is quite as impressive as it was, and that's certainly a good sign. But these things do ebb and flow, and it could certainly increase once again. The cycling process is a pretty natural event with storms like this.
And they're moving fast too. The Weather Service saying, I mean, east at 55 miles an hour. That storm's booking it.
Yeah, to say the least. And as far as other storms go around eastern Iowa, we're going to back the old radar out here just a touch, and we'll be able to show you what else is out here. And this is definitely the big game now, from about Iowa City all the way back down to Wetumpka. We're getting a pretty good bowing feature. I don't know if you can see it on your home screen, but if you pay close attention right in there, you can see how this is starting to bow out. So the cold air that's up in the tops of the thunderstorm comes down, hits the ground, and then it squirts on out, and you get yourself these strong winds that could gust as high as 65, maybe even 70 miles per hour. You've already had a confirmed gust in Parnell of 60 miles per hour on the winds here this evening.
Also got a report out of Parnell of nickel-sized hail, so perhaps maybe some larger hail fell in there from what we were seeing on our algorithm, but at least the one report we've gotten is nickel-sized.
Yeah, which isn't going to cause you any damage, but it'll wake you up a little bit, I promise you that much. But as the storms move off to the east-northeast, it's now the southwestern part of Johnson County there that is under the gun. And a little bit closer inspection on this now does show right in that general area east of Williamsburg, not too far from Interstate 80, probably very close to Oxford, is where we also have some rotation indicated there. So, so far, no confirmed tornadoes, but right in this region here, the potential definitely does exist. Nick, we're going to try back with you one more time. What can you show us?
Hey Terry, yeah, we are now heading east, trying to fight to get out ahead of the storm. We are just on the northern fringe of that tornado warning now. What you're seeing is what we call the shelf cloud. Again, we've talked about it before. That's an indication of strong winds, and you can see how it's kind of layered. There's kind of stacks to that shelf cloud. That's because there's so much wind shear in the atmosphere today that's helping these storms rotate. You're actually seeing the rotation with the different layers in the shelf cloud there. So the storm is definitely capable of producing some type of rotation, which is why obviously there's a tornado warning in effect. But you can also just see it visually by looking at the clouds. So we're now fighting to get back out ahead of the rain. We kind of encountered it a little bit there, but we're now heading back east, ultimately towards Swisher, and then south down 380 towards Iowa City. We should have a great shot of it momentarily, and hopefully nothing's on the ground down there. But I got to say, the rotation on the radar is definitely looking like it's picking up again.
Now you can see the bases of the clouds there, Nick, but is it because of the rain-wrapped effect of the rain that you can't see anything, or is it just basically there's nothing there? There's no confirmed tornado, obviously.
The area of interest, the problem, Terry, is that it'd be so wrapped in rain, I just don't think we'd be able to see a thing with it. It's just so heavily wrapped in rain back there. Yeah. And so we're just trying to stay kind of out ahead of it. And now we got great options west to make sure that we're safe to stay out ahead of this. Because unfortunately, if there is a tornado, we're really not going to be able to see it. So the best thing that we will be able to provide you is that radar data of where that circulation is.
Okay. Well, it's certainly getting dark out there, and you're getting closer and closer. We can see where you are on the radar here, and it won't be too much longer before you come in contact with the storm and get yourself a pretty good perspective. So we're going to be touching back with you here in just a moment, but now we're going back to our velocity mode here, and right about in this general area here is where we would be expecting to see some sort of circulation. So it has stayed just a little bit to the south of Oxford, but probably some strong winds in the Oxford area now. And then eventually it's going to get pretty close to North Liberty and into the Coralville area there. So that's something we need to watch out for as we go into the next few minutes or so. Brandon, what do you got for me over there? Anything?
The tornado warning has been expired for Iowa County,
okay.
But it does continue for Johnson until 6:30.
Okay. And our warning off to the east, our severe thunderstorm warning then, goes all the way out into Cedar County. Is that correct? And
Cedar and Johnson County, and that is in effect till 7.
Okay. And then Washington County is also involved a little bit in that as well.
Yes.
Okay, good. So basically, a lot of the area under a severe thunderstorm warning near and south of Interstate 80, and then that little red polygon you see there around Iowa City is where we have the actual tornado warning, and that one will be out until 6:30 this evening. No confirmed tornadoes yet, but definitely rotation in the storm. We do have a supercell thunderstorm there that's capable of producing high winds and also some large hail, and that'll be moving east and probably will go around 40 miles an hour, 35 to 40. So if that's the case, the worst part of this storm, the actual core here, should go in this general direction towards Iowa City at 6:19, West Branch around 6:30, and then around 6:45 over towards Tipton. And the instability is still pretty significant down this way. Our capes are high today. That's the available potential energy for these thunderstorms. So I don't expect this to weaken a great deal, but hopefully we'll at least get rid of that tornado circulation, which has been causing everybody a little consternation here over the past 15 to 20 minutes.
And also just a lot of heavy rain too that is going to fall in a short period of time with these storms. Just a lot of moisture out there. You can just feel it.
In fact, we can go to the Doppler estimate of how much rain has come down. And where you're getting out where the storm was earlier, there's North English and Williamsburg, that region right in there. You can see the rainfall totals, about 2.7 inches indicated there just west of North English, and a little southwest of there, 2.6. So as we've been telling you all along, these are going to be prolific rainfall producers, and there's a lot of lightning involved too, and in some spots we've seen wind gusts of up to 60 miles an hour. So if you're near or just south of Interstate 80, that's something to expect here as the storms advance east over the next 15 to 20 minutes or so.
Terry, I did also want to mention for anyone watching elsewhere, they're starting to tailor back that severe thunderstorm watch, so we're starting to see some of our counties get let go from that. So the threat's really contained down to the south for this evening.
Yeah, that's where the best instability is now, and since the front has advanced through our northwestern counties, the threat of any severe weather there is certainly long gone, and really even the heavy rain potential is going down in that part of our viewing area as well. But there's still definitely a notch on our radar here, which indicates a pretty decent circulation in this storm, which is now passing southeast of Oxford and approaching, not too far away from the Coralville, Iowa City area, probably around Tiffin there. So if you're out in that part of our viewing area, you're definitely seeing the storm. We'll take a quick look at Iowa City, and then we talked about the shelf cloud earlier. You can clearly see that approaching Iowa City now. So the winds are going to pick up in Iowa City, and the rains are going to come down big time here in the next few minutes as this storm moves its way across Johnson County in towards Coralville, Iowa City, and down towards Riverside. And that's where we see the worst of the circulation right now. So going in a little bit closer on Iowa City, you can see right where the downtown is located in this general region here. And off to the northwest is where Coralville is. And looks like the strongest part of the storm is not too far away from Coralville, maybe just a little bit south of Interstate 80 there. But all of this region can expect very heavy rainfall and strong winds as the core of the storm actually approaches Iowa City itself. And Nick, if you can weigh in a little bit, we'd like to know what you're seeing out there now.
Hey Terry, yeah, we're still trying to keep out ahead of the storm. We're in the town of Swisher right now. We're just kind of fighting. Obviously, the area here is not the greatest chase terrain. We got the Iowa River Valley here. We got all the different lakes kind of in this area. So we're really trying to get out ahead of the storm and keep ahead of the storm. We'll kind of take a look back here. We're at least ahead of the rain, which is off to our south. But again, the structure on this line of storms is still quite impressive. Again, the main area of interest is kind of closing in, as you were mentioning, kind of maybe along and south of I-80, and so we're still north of that, and we're just trying to kind of safely get out ahead of the line. Again, the biggest problem with this line is that it's producing just such heavy rainfall, and visibility comes just so low that the area of rotation would be so enveloped in rain.
Yeah, Nick, I think you're going to have a tough time catching up with this one where you're currently located. You might actually have to let it pass to the south and then try to get on I-80 and come at it from that direction there. But at this point, it's due south of you, and there's just no way you're going to get in on this thing until it gets on by to the east. But you should have pretty good perspective of a lot of heavy rain and some pretty fascinating clouds to look at there too.
Yeah, that's for sure. Our biggest concern right now is, of course, motorists that might be driving on I-80 and I-380. And so we're going to kind of meander south down 380 towards I-80, remaining north of that area of circulation, and come up behind it. I think that's currently the best play for us right now. And hopefully the cars are taking refuge that are maybe on I-80, both from the very strong winds. Remember, it's not just the tornadic winds with this is a problem. It's also producing 70-mile-per-hour winds according to that severe thunderstorm warning. So there's definitely a lot of power with the storm. So especially for areas like 380, that north-south oriented highway, that would be a big problem for high-profile vehicles like trucks as the storm approaches them.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that too, because we can see that on the base velocity mode here. You can see that orangey, purpley color there, kind of. It extends from Iowa City back through Coralville and then east of Oxford now, probably through Tiffin. That's right where you could expect to see the strongest winds, which should be at least 50, maybe as high as 60 miles per hour. So there's going to be a pretty good blow there, it looks to me like, from about Coralville back through Iowa City and then also back towards the Tiffin area. With the storm moving in an easterly direction, this should come right across Iowa City. And I know we had a shot of the Iowa City area. Can we go back to that or not? And now the actual shelf cloud has passed, so you can't see it as dramatically as it was earlier. But the storm hasn't quite gotten into downtown Iowa City, but it is not far away from what I can tell you on the radar tonight. And then it will move its way right across Johnson County. And at that point, it looks like it's eventually headed for Cedar County. And
I was going to say, Terry,
yeah,
on that camera there, you could actually see people walking around still on the University of Iowa campus. So if you have some friends on campus, maybe want to tell them to get inside. It would be a good idea to be indoors when the storm comes on through.
kind of looks like too, the worst of the winds might hold just across the northern part of Iowa City and then back to North Liberty and Coralville. That's what it's looking like on the radar here. But Nick, we've got you back, I understand.
Yeah, take our feed if you got it. We can see the area of rotation. It's straight out ahead of us on 380.
Which is pretty impressive. Tell us what you're seeing exactly, besides rotation.
Yeah, hey Terry, yeah, what you're looking at right there, that is basically your area of rotation. You can see kind of the flank of the storm there on the far left edge. Notice how it's a very sharp cutoff. The area of rotation would be right behind those trees back there. It's definitely just a monstrous storm right now. You can see if we kind of zoom out, all the striations in the clouds above us, that is, again, that wind shear. You can see basically the winds blowing into the storm from the northeast. We'll kind of pan to the right. Again, this area is mainly the wind threat on the far north edge as well as the heavy rain threat, but we'll pan down to the big area of interest. That we had a great view there just a moment ago, but we're kind of losing it because with the trees. We're about to get another really good view of it here. Again, that's kind of the area of interest right down there. That is it. It's just approaching basically on top of Iowa City right now. It's any rotation with this storm, if there's any circulation, it would be embedded inside that area.
Well, we're going to stay with Nick here, and we can just kind of talk over this, and anytime you want to chime in, Nick, you just go right ahead. But basically, you're getting close to Interstate 80, and it now looks like the core of the circulation is right about on Interstate 80 there and moving in an easterly direction, maybe a little east-northeast, and that should take it right across Coralville if it hasn't already done so, probably has. And now it's looked like it's heading east of there, right along I-80, and eventually it'll be moving off into the central parts of Johnson County.
Hey Terry, I just want to jump in real quick and mention that the lightning with this storm is very, very impressive as well. We're seeing constant barrage of what we call CG lightning, the cloud-to-ground lightning strike. So very, very dangerous lightning is also occurring with this storm. So you got to make sure you're inside. We're losing the trees. Let me zoom out again. But again, there's that area of interest. You can see it down there. It's the big, sharp cutoff, the leading edge of the storm. That is where that circulation would be. But we're just losing it because of trees. But again, the biggest thing is the lightning. There's so many lightning strikes with this storm. It's like concussive blast. And there's a good view right there. That is where, if a tornado would be, it would be right there. And the good news is it doesn't appear there's anything on the ground, but again, with that rain just under it, it could be kind of embedded in that rain as well.
Now, have you noticed any winds at all where you're at? Everything's been pretty much further south of you in terms of the gusts?
We're kind of on the northern edge, so what we're kind of getting is the inflow winds from the northeast, and so we're not getting strong winds, but it's definitely it's kind of blowing us around a little bit as the storm is approaching. I'd say they're definitely sub-severe, but we're getting basically inflow winds from the northeast and the north that's blowing into that area of interest just off to our south.
And sometimes you're going to get into the RFD. Can you explain a little bit about that and the structure of these winds that blow into the storms?
I mean, the storms are essentially, the tornado is essentially a giant area of low pressure. So, I mean, essentially the same way that you would get a, an area of low pressure that moves on through a strong storm system, you kind of get the south winds blowing into it and then the north winds wrapping around. You kind of get that circular flow. And what's essentially happening with the storm is that it's rotating, the winds are essentially rotating around the storm like an area of low pressure. And so what we're seeing on our radar, essentially the winds are wrapping around the storm, and that's exactly what we can see. And we're starting to lose a visual now because we're starting to get in the heavy rain that's on the north side of that circulation. But what you can see right there, that area of interest just past the North Liberty water tower.
So you're right on the edge of North Liberty there. I'm going to go back here and put your vehicle on so people can kind of get an idea of where you are in relation to the storm. So there is Nick there heading right down the interstate, approaching Interstate 80. And North Liberty is right in this general region here. So this is about where Coralville is located. And I'm assuming you guys will take a little hook there and try and go back and get it from this direction. But in terms of an actual couplet or rotation that's very specific to a tornado, nothing obvious. It's very broad there, but it sure looks to me like there's a nice area where there could be a 5 to 10 mile per hour swath of winds that are anywhere in that 40 to 60 mile per hour range, and that's just to the north of Interstate 80. So if things go well, maybe most of Iowa City escaped the worst of the storm, but not so along and north of Interstate 80, which is where Tiffin, Iowa City, and North Liberty are located. And then you get up towards Newport there. The storm definitely going to bring some strong winds to that part of our viewing area as well. I'm assuming you guys haven't heard anything over there in terms of updates from the NWS?
No reports.
No reports is usually a good thing, so we'll take it as that. But so far, no confirmed tornado, despite the fact we still have a tornado warning in effect until 6:30 tonight in Johnson County. And the storm is now moving very close to Iowa City itself. And a little closer perspective there, you can see right where Iowa City is. There's Dubuque Street, Gilbert Street, and off to the east there towards West Branch is Herbert Hoover Highway. And the storm probably going to go near or north of West Branch over towards Newport there. And then after that, it's going to be heading off to the east towards Cedar Bluff and Cedar Valley. And then you're starting to get into Cedar County and it's out of Johnson County itself.
And along with that, the potential for a tornado, this storm does have a history of strong winds. We got that report out of Parnell, 60-mile-an-hour winds. Then did get a report of trees down all over town in Parnell. And a lot of people have been losing power as well as the storm's been coming through.
Yeah, we did have some reports in Williamsburg, too, of power being out there. So that seems to be when the storm was at its worst, and that is definitely when we had our strongest couplet. And just backing this up, you can kind of see that here. Right in this general area back here, I got to go back just a touch. But things were definitely cranking right about there. And then it's that part, that little yellow-orange area there west of Parnell that came up between there and Williamsburg, and that's when we had some of the worst of the power outages and winds and lightning, and that's the storm was really at its peak then. Now it kind of continues to spin off to the northeast, but not a real obvious, clear, definitive hook, that is for sure. So if there is any tornado in there, it's rain-wrapped and probably not overly large, but the bottom line is it's still capable of dumping out a tornado for at least a short period of time. Let's see what Nick's doing, if he's gotten down to Interstate 80 there. Nick, what's going on?
Hey Terry, yeah, we're still heading south, approaching the I-380 interchange. There's a lot of vehicles that have been pulling off the interstate, which is fairly good news. We really don't want people driving into the path of the storm. Again, we have radar inside our vehicle. We can see what's going on. We know exactly where we are in relation to the area's circulation. And the biggest problem is right now you're dealing with just very heavy rainfall outside. Visibility is dropping pretty heavily. We're also starting to get the winds coming out of the northwest as the area circulation is now to our southeast. So again, imagine air of low pressure. The winds are wrapping counterclockwise around that low pressure center here. I'll kind of show it on here. Here's kind of our location. Notice again, the winds are wrapping counterclockwise. So the area circulation now just to our bottom right, that is kind of where that tornado may or may not be, that area circulation. The good news is it's beginning to weaken a little bit. Sounds like we're starting to get some hail too. So let's go back outside. We're starting to get a little hail. It doesn't sound very large, but we are kind of in the core of the storm. The hail threat with the storm wasn't a huge concern, but there is, again, we were kind of talking about nickel-sized to maybe quarter-sized hail at best. But we're starting to get a few small hailstones here. Let me switch to camera 3 here. It's kind of our dash camera. I'll give you a little bit of a better view. So we're making that merge onto I-80 from I-380. Again, you can notice the lightning is very frequent as well. But again, I don't know how well you can see it. The ditches on the side of the road definitely filling up with water. So we've been talking about the flash flooding threat being as big as it is. We're really starting to see the sides of the road starting to pick up with a lot of water because the rain is falling so heavily. And we've had quite a bit of rain in the days past as well.
Now, in terms of what I'm seeing on the radar right now, there is definitely no couplet that I can determine. I just don't see it on here. And so I do think the tornado threat is definitely much lower than it was earlier on. The circulation looks broad to me right now, probably not getting down to the ground. But the bottom line is we still have a tornado warning in effect until 6:30, and that does include parts of Johnson County. But in Iowa City, you are safe and clear. The worst part of the storm is now to the northeast of you. It's also passed through Coralville and North Liberty, so it's pretty much the all clear in those areas. But off to the east of there, we'll still keep a close tab on things, as there is that potential for at least a brief tornado spin up until this thing fizzles out a little bit and moves off to the east. But a lot of lightning on these storms, as you'll be able to see right here. And that's definitely going to be an issue as we go through the next few hours, especially in our southern and eastern counties. There could be some power outage just from the lightning alone. As you can see, this thing is really lit up like a Christmas tree there. And now the feature is starting to bow out. So anywhere from east of Iowa City down to about Washington and over to Ottumwa, that region, that whole line continues to drive southeast and is likely to produce some gusty winds as the bow echo that looks like it's forming there advances in a southeasterly direction. So that's an area to watch for sure in terms of additional winds. Notice though to the north, the lack of lightning, the actual front itself now looks like it's probably gotten right in this region here. And so once that goes on by, that ends the threat of any strong to severe thunderstorms, and after that you're just going to get into some of these lingering garden variety showers and thunderstorms. Some of those could produce some brief heavy rain, but no severe weather in terms of wind, hail, or anything like that. But down here where you're seeing all the lightning, still the threat of some severe weather, and that would include the area from Dubuque back to Cedar Rapids and then on to the southwest to about Sigourney, maybe a little bit east of there. Now I would imagine that the severe thunderstorm watch that's in our northern counties, if it hasn't been canceled, is going to be very soon, and then they'll start chipping away at the other one, which extends across our southern counties. And by the time we get to 8 or 9 o'clock tonight, I think it's all going to be over with here in eastern Iowa, which is very good news.
Yeah, they have started to drop that severe thunderstorm watch in the north. And let me see. There's also been the Washington airport had a 52-mile-an-hour wind gust. And in Cedar Rapids, even though we're not in that warning, we still have some gusty winds, 47 miles an hour at the Cedar Rapids airport.
And another way you can tell a storm's intensity, Rebecca, and you know this well, is that you can see how high the tops of the storms are. And
That's a big one.
Yeah, 58,000 feet. You figure 5,000 is a mile, so this is vertically straight up in the atmosphere, 10 miles high. And the higher they are, the more instability there is, the stronger the storms, and the more potential for severe weather. And today there was just enough rotation, as we could show you out there with the road warrior Nick, that these storms did start to rotate down in our southern counties, and that's why our tornado warning was issued. But it is now about 6:30, and so far I have not seen any indication that they are going to extend it. So that would be good news. But we still do have, out in advance of our tornado warning, a severe thunderstorm warning for southern parts of Cedar County. So the storm that's produced the tornado warning could continue to produce severe weather as it moves into Cedar County. But at this point, I'm thinking there's a pretty good chance that they'll discontinue the tornado warning itself.
They haven't said so yet, but as you were saying, there's still that wind threat, and there have been multiple power outages around. So these from Alliant, there's over 1,000 customers, 1,765 without power. That's in Iowa County, and there are other areas around there too. Been getting some reports, and this takes some time as the power goes out. So that's going to be something they're going to have to work on tonight, because strong winds between 50 to maybe as high as 70 miles an hour with this Boeing segment here.
And we talked about that Boeing segment. There it is right there. The winds gush out of the thunderstorms and then try to race out and ahead of it. They can actually form little mini cold fronts, and that's kind of what's driving this feature right now. It's got its own cold pool right in here, and the storms are developing as that pushes out, forming a little mini cold front right in this region here. The main front's probably a little bit further to the back. But I can tell you the temperatures are a whole lot colder behind that storm line there than they are ahead of it, where readings are probably well into the 80s, and it's probably in the 60s, low to mid 60s behind it with the rain cooled air. But we do occasionally see some spin-ups on these lines here, and so we'll have to watch and see how that goes here over the next hour or so. But most of these storms are going to be out of our viewing area very shortly. That's good news. And it is 6:30, and I have not seen any indication of them
It looks like it
advancing
just dropped from there. Yep.
All right. So we're happy to see that there are no longer any tornado warnings in effect, and as far as we know, there was never one that did touch down, but some damage reported scattered around parts of our viewing area and some power outages as well. So we'll continue to monitor the storms as they move through southeastern Iowa and our southern counties, but at this point, the only severe thunderstorm warnings that are out will be for parts of Washington and Cedar counties in our viewing area. So we'll leave our coverage there for now, but if something changes or there's anything important to relate to you, we will be back on the air as soon as possible.